Hello, glad to see everybody here. My name is Ruben Hernandez. I'm go ahead and got you all here as a collaborative classroom observation meeting committee. We are meeting to create a new observation form as part of my graduate work for Stephen F. Austin University. I'd like to take this time to introduce myself quickly and give a little of my background. I've been in education for going on 17 years. Been at high school level, middle school level in the elective field, but have been observed obviously during that time as well. So we'll go around the Zoom meeting room and everybody can have a quick introduction and then we'll get into the meeting and the reason for the meeting. But right now, let's go ahead and have introductions from everybody. Christian.
Hello, my name is Christian Hernandez. I've been teaching for 5 years. I'm going to start my sixth year. I've taught in science, chemistry I started with, and now I'm teaching physics, AP, and regular. And I've also coached and done UIL academics. So that's kind of like my background in education.
And currently you're at the high school?
Yes, I'm doing high school. I've only done high school.
Okay.
Here in Edinburgh, Texas.
Okay. Miss Maria Hernandez.
Hello, my name is Maria Hernandez. I'm a middle school teacher. I've been teaching for 26 years or 25 years. I've been doing I usually we do PE, but we still get observed. Or are we talking about the observation yet?
No, yeah. Just a background about yourself.
Okay, so I've just been at the middle school.
Okay. Miss Mora, Sarah Mora.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mora. This is going to be my fifth year teaching, and I teach high school chemistry. That's all I've taught so far. And I also do UIL science, so I do have a little bit of a background in that. But yeah, I'm still currently at the high school level, and that's my specialty, I guess.
Thank you. And Miss Vanessa Guizar.
Hi, my name's Vanessa Guisar. I am currently an educational diagnostician. I've completed 20 years of education service. I taught for 11 years as a special education teacher in a variety of areas. I did in-class support, resource, discovery, which is considered a behavior unit. And while I served in the capacity of a special education teacher, I was also a coach. I coached volleyball, basketball, soccer, and track. My first 2 years of teaching were at the middle school, and my other 8 years were at the high school level. And I'm currently an educational diagnostician at a high school.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. So let me go over the reasons of why we are meeting. We are going to go ahead and try to create a new classroom observation form that administrators and appraisers use when they are observing teachers in the classroom setting. I've sent you all the forms, but I'll have them on the screen as well so we can go over. What we'll do is we'll look at them and I'll take the notes on my paperwork on our side, and we'll look at the positive things, the good things. But right now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's see if it works. And we should be able. Okay, let me try one thing real quick. Are y'all seeing that? Yes, okay. So we're going to go over the first one, which is sample observation techniques. This one is where basically they're getting in there. They're looking at 5 different categories. They're looking at student involvement, individualized instruction, levels of student thinking, teacher talk behavior, and classroom climate. So it kind of analyzes the big 5 major things when a teacher is walking through your classroom. Is there any? And I'll go by each one and just say what you like, because we're going to go through a variety of them, and so it's okay to X something and say, well, I don't think that's really beneficial for me from a walkthrough or anything like that. Christian.
So you just want me to kind of like which ones? Oh, sorry, you can-
So this is the first page. So this is, I'm sorry, this is the first one. So this is where the focus is at. There's a bunch of different varieties. Let me explain. So the focus these are the 5 main things that they're looking for through an observation. But the forms that we're going to go over, pretty much, you can see, like, if, for example, student involvement, what we're analyzing, those are usually going to be seen through the verbal flow, the at task, the sampling, the overview, and scripting. So those are the other forms. And then individualized instruction can be seen. So you can see what I'm trying to explain is, each category, their forms pretty much can say, oh, those are usually covered in that form. So we're essentially going to try to create a new form where everything can kind of be seen. So, for example, like teacher talk behavior, that's usually seen as through selective verbatim, overview scripting, and tally marks style. So the one that's usually here for all of them is overview scripting and tally marks, because those are the ones that do cover a lot of things as they're getting viewed. So let me go through the first one. So overview and scripting, that's when they write down everything that transpires in the classroom. For the scripting, they write down everything that is said in the classroom. These observation techniques are useful for gathering information. On most focus areas, it is difficult, however, to record everything. So you use shorthand notations. So when they do this, they try to create the seating map, the classroom number of students. So obviously, if they're doing a walkthrough, it kind of gets kind of hectic to do all this. But basically, what's going to happen is usually they'll have the scripting part down, the information for the teacher, the subject date, as before they go in, and then they'll start once their time starts. They're going in, and then they're looking for everything that's being said, and then they'll do an analysis at the end. So I mean, what I'll do is I'll just let you all speak. If you want to talk, you can say what you like about it or what you don't like. Because basically, what's going to happen is this is the form you would get when they would do your observation. So you would look at it and be like, well, what am I missing? This doesn't, it'll help or won't help. So Christian, you can go ahead and start.
So for the overview and script, is that what the one we're talking about right now? Overview.
Yes,
and script?
overview and scripting, the one that's on screen.
So that's basically where the person observing is writing every single thing down that's happening in the class. Okay, so I mean that's good because you kind of have all of the information that you basically observed, all the data, everything. But I mean I wouldn't say it's super necessary, because I mean you can kind of just observe and write down the important things, but it does help in the analysis a lot, like when they're analyzing, like when they're doing the observation. But they could also maybe do that through like technology, maybe do this overview and scripting. They can also change that by maybe using like recorders or cameras, stuff like that. But in order to do the analysis, I understand like the importance of the overview and scripting.
Okay. All right, Miss Mona, do you have anything to add?
I think so. It's probably a little difficult to be like typing or writing everything that's being said and done in the class. And you have to be really observant, especially if you're creating a seating chart. Like the way I'm looking at this, like how I think they like number the students, right? Like, oh, number 3 said this, number 14 said this. That seems very
tedious.
involved.
It would take time to
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
So it's a question of how much are you really getting to analyze what the teacher is doing when you're focusing on, let me write down every single thing that's being said. What student just said that? What number was he? Let me check the seating chart. Oh, I just missed what he said. So for me, I feel like this one, I like what Ms. Hernandez said, with like maybe instead of having it like typed out and everything, you record the lesson, like at least like an audio recording, like that way, instead of having to be focusing on the typing aspect or the writing aspect, you can focus on the lesson. And then if you need to go back, you can make a transcript afterwards, after the fact. So I feel like it's just a little too involved. I feel like it's a little difficult to analyze if you're focused on just all of the transcribing.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and switch to the next one. Then I'll talk about I'll use other teachers in this one, so that way we can see. Hold on real quick. All right, on the selective verbatim, this technique is a form of scripting. However, the focus is narrower, which is what we're trying to get. They record everything that is said within a certain category for focus areas. So there's 2 columns for the categories of talk. So one's teacher talk, one's student talk, or maybe the students responding or asking questions. And then, for example, on the bottom middle part, it talks about the questions, like maybe the questions that the teacher's relating to the class, and maybe gets the focus going at that time. So as you can see, the categories of the teacher talk were, like questions, response to statements that either students are making, directions, or getting the assignments, information statements, which is more of their lecture or whatever they're trying to get across, and criticisms and constructive feedback, and of course management statements, which would basically, hey, put that away when you get to work, or we're trying to take notes, anything like that. Ms. Guisar, if you look at that, is there anything that you would like to add, or maybe say, well, that's a little over that wouldn't benefit anybody?
I'm trying to, it's because it's really hard for me to see the screen, and I'm trying to see if I can make it bigger, and I can't.
Okay, hold on. I
can barely see. I'm sorry.
Can you see that a little better?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay. So you can see there's the categories for teacher talk. I know when I looked at this one and I had to do informal one, I did prefer this one because it offered different categories, and you still when you go to the next part, as far as the questions is what the teacher's relating, I thought that was a big benefit, because you could say, well, you know what, you took 10 minutes with this question or 5 minutes, and that way that was the time that the students were trying to understand that, and then you moved on to a second subject or second topic, and then you debated, or you started your assignment, or you broke off into groups, and that I think is a big benefit when you can show that, you can go back and say, this is what your timeline was in the classroom.
Can I see the questions again? let me see
The
what it
statements
was.
or the questions?
The statements, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, these are the categories for like teacher talk. So if I were to walk through, I could say, okay, she's using questions, and then kids are
Right.
asking questions.
So for this, I feel like this is a good area because I feel that the kids, this is more where the kids are involved. Like the teacher, poses a question or says a statement or gives an assignment. Then you're getting the students more involved. Like, are they able to answer the question? Are they able to, to answer the question or the statement or whatever was expected of them? Like in math, were they able to do, whatever the math problem was or whatever for whatever subject. So I feel like you're getting the kids more involved, but also I like you said, sometimes we do take a lot of time on a question. However, if there's a lot of students nowadays that are not going to be able to answer every question. So say, for example, you're up on the board and you're teaching something and then you ask the students, okay, are you able to do it? And the majority is going to say, yes, I'm able to do it. But then if you are looking at the students, were the students able to grasp what you were teaching? So sometimes you do take extra time on certain problems or certain questions because you can see if the students aren't really interacting, you're able to see like, okay, the student didn't understand, let me take a little bit longer time. So I feel like this is good. You're, like I said, you're getting feedback from the students to see if they're comprehending whatever the lesson was.
That's good. The next one we'll look at, let's see if we move up. Verbal flow. So this one is where they're not necessarily analyzing what's being taught. Like I said, these are walkthrough ones, so they don't necessarily have to number them, but they do have a flow chart. So basically, when a student or teacher asks a question, they pass that on to another student. So you're trying to see, you can see how the flow of the talk goes here, okay, and then another one had a conversation here and it went this way. Another one here, it went to that student, they talk, it ended there. Maybe that one got called, it moved down. It's just trying to catch the verbal flow. I guess what it analyzes is you can see what students are actively involved and how it moves on. And in doing so, you're able to identify, maybe your higher thinkers, and maybe you want to put your ones that are not maybe closer to you to try to build a more foundation with them, so that way they can succeed in the lesson that you're trying to catch. So I'll go over that one, and then I'll take that one, and then we'll go on to the next one. So I'll pass that on to Christian. So here's another different example. This is at task. And I guess when we go through them at the end, or as we go through them, would you think that verbal flow one, was that have a lot of information that you would use in the classroom, or maybe not so much? Anybody?
I actually really like the verbal flow one. I think that one was really cool. That's probably my favorite so far because I like that. Well, I'm also a visual person, so that kind of like made me really see it. And so you can see kind of like you said, where your higher order thinkers are and who's kind of growing off of each other, who's like continuing that conversation about the topic that you're talking about. And maybe it might even help you see seating chart effectiveness. Like maybe I need to do a different kind of seating chart, like not just this typical rectangle, like maybe more people in the front or more people in the middle, or kind of engaging in the conversation, and people in the back are not. Maybe I can change the way my seats are arranged in the classroom, or do group settings and see how that affects it and stuff like that. So it kind of helps you visually see how the students are working together and which students are being more involved in stuff in the conversation or the topic at hand.
Okay, which brings us to another one, which I think would be kind of beneficial to you. For example, it's called at task, and that's where you go in with a seating chart, or at least a blank one. You don't have to necessarily identify who's who. I mean, we've all done a seating chart for testing, so just put wall there, and we know where you're at, or desk. So this is where they have a legend for A, at task, B, stalling, C, schoolwork other than requested, meaning maybe they're working on something else, doing drawing or something, reading, or maybe they're just, maybe they're done with their work, but it's got to be documented to see how they are doing. D, out of C, or E, just talking with others. So I guess at different points during the lesson, that appraiser's looking around, and he'll see that, little Johnny here is at task the whole time, and all at 4 little checkpoints throughout the lesson. And then this one right here, she was at task, and then she got out of her seat, and then I guess or she was out of her seat at that time, and then later on he checked again, she was still out of her seat, and then she came back, she was at task. This student, I'm pointing at right here, was talking to others, then at task, and it varies because you're going to get kids that are stalling. These are the ones that need the most attention at times. Stalling, because you're going to end up wondering, why are they stalling? Or do they just not know it? Do they not want to do it? Are they having a bad day? All those things make the difference when you have relationships with your kids in the classroom. And those are the things you, as a teacher, you observe from your students on a daily basis. And then, you'll get a kid here, doing other classwork or whatever, and you'll see like this one's straight C. So that means he's doing other work. Now, there could be a logical answer for that. And, when you get this as a feedback, oh, I know, Larry was doing classwork in another class because he had already done the assignment. He'd gotten ahead, and we were working on something else, but he had already caught up with that. And he asked, "Can I do my algebra work or something?" And you said, "That's fine. If you stay quiet and you're on task, that's fine." But that just goes into the background of what was actually happening. So if you got a chart like this and you saw a bunch of B's, that would not be good. So I guess once you understand the legend, would you see something like this and be beneficial to you?
I like this one a lot.
Okay, go Sarah. I'm sorry.
I like that one a lot, actually. I'm always telling my students that I'm always watching them. And a lot of the times they're like, "Nah, miss, there's no way, like, you're not always watching." And they'll be like, "What was I doing like 10 minutes ago?" And I'm like, "You're on your phone." So this is something I like a lot because I think it's really good to keep track of these things, like not just maybe from the admin's standpoint, but like from my point of view as well, like as a teacher. I am a little crazy in that sense where like I like to keep track of what they're doing. Like I'm gonna be constantly looking and being like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get to work. And I like to have like the proof essentially, like I just looked around at this time and at this time you were doing this. And I think that's really good actually. I like that one a lot.
Okay, Vanessa.
I was gonna say that it's a really good method because you could see your different types of learners. And when you get those, you as a teacher, you know who your at-risk students are, whether they're special ed, whether they're 504, what accommodations they're getting. So if we like to use like the peers, right? So if you know that a student is struggling and you don't have a co-teacher in the classroom, or that classroom, you don't have in-class support, you can group the students with, somebody that is more able to help them when you're, not there, like at their beck and call, like say you're doing something else with another student, you can group them. So I think this is actually a very good method. So you could see, which students are on task, which ones are on target, which ones are doing what they're expected to do.
Yeah, and so what a lot of this one does is it analyzes the student's level of engagement, like it says there, and especially I think what would be beneficial to this is if say you're going to do four letters, it'd be interesting. Like say the lesson's being recorded, or at least there's a time. At least it'd be nice to say, well, what time was that at? Like say first mark was at 10:05, and then the other part of the lesson was getting, and then at 10:15 they were still at task, and you do a little quick run through, and then as you put them, but it'd be nice to have the timestamp, I guess per se, on when the students were on task or off task. Okay, and then the next one is a sampling, and this is more of getting observed as a teacher. So basically, same kind of legend, but now there's different. Now you see how I'm talking about like timestamps that I was thinking of, but this is more of you. Okay, is she presenting? Are you observing? You're watching the class on what they're doing. Are you managing? Which is correcting some, not necessarily correcting, addressing classroom management. Kids getting up out of seats, leaving, or on their phone or doing something wrong. Helping, maybe you said part of the lesson and the student says, hey, can you help me with this? And then you're taking time, but it helps you analyze your patterns and of course, individualize instruction. Helping consoling can be a variety of different things, but individualized instruction is if a kid needs help specifically with an actual problem as you are transgressing into the actual lesson and not lesson, the actual assignment, and kids are starting to work and you're going to go help. So that would be the individualized instruction. But if you can see the timestamps are on there, what's good to see that is you can see, okay, I lectured for 8 minutes and I took up a lot of time and I gave them 2 minutes to do work or whatever it may be, depending on how your lesson presumed through that day. So like in the assignment, the example of this, the walkthrough was 36 minutes, which, they were presenting for 8 minutes or well, maybe more. But at 1:12, they started managing. It could have been a correction, could have been something else. And then at 1:20 to 1:28, they were helping or consoling. And then at 1:32 is, I'm assuming that in that lesson, they were giving the assignment. So some students did it on their own. At that time, he started individually helping students with that. So it's a good example of for how you are as a teacher individually to analyze how you that. Anything on that you all do like, don't like?
I do like this. However, I just feel I know this it's supposed to be feedback for the teacher. However, I feel that there needs to be something like on the comments, because you don't want to make it seem like they were just like, what were they doing when they were managing? Were they managing like handling a discipline issue? Was a student off task? Did a student throw a tantrum? So I think it would be good to specify like, what is it that that they were doing, and how could they correct it? Because they could say, well, you don't have good good management skills, good classroom management skills. Okay, well, tell me what I did wrong and tell me how I can improve that. So maybe like on the side, like if it's something like that, like maybe put a comment, like a little something for a comment.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll go to the next one. So class traffic is another example to record the patterns of the teacher and some of your students, but mainly to see how you move. So you can, with straight line, you can direct, like see how much that teacher moved. And in today's classroom, you have to be able to move around and see what your students are doing. So for example, a line would be say, oh, she went through all the desks as she was talking and lecturing. Directed student movement is basically, hey, go get this or go set up this, and that's different. Non-directed but purposeful student movement. Maybe they got up, go sharpen their pencil, or they got up and got something out of their bag. And then non-directed but non-purposeful is Johnny going to talk to Jenny over there and interrupting your class or going to distract somebody else. So this isn't filled in, obviously, but at least you have a sample setting of how it could be drawn up. Do you think this would be beneficial to you if a appraiser went and walked through and showed you, hey, this was your movement in the classroom?
Yes, I actually like this one. I think it's good to get feedback like this, because as a teacher, you can see, are you covering the whole classroom when you're maybe they're working on an assignment, you're walking around. I do this a lot. So especially I'll give them an assignment, I'll walk around because I know they always kind of have questions on how to solve something or what to plug it in, if they're answering these units, there's a lot of questions. And so I walk around a lot. And sometimes I've gotten, some of my kids will say, you're on that side of the room for a long time and you haven't come to our side and we need help. And so that would also be helpful to get feedback. Am I focusing on one area of the classroom too much? And sometimes I stay in one area because the kids keep calling me. And so I tell them, try to call me over, try to get my attention so that way I can try to go around. But, seeing that would help me visually say, oh, you know what, I'm staying too much on the left side or in the back of the classroom, try to move around a little bit more, but also getting feedback from the students too. Like, are they getting up and doing things they're not supposed to be doing while I'm helping another student? So I can, work on talking to those students and managing them better. But also the purposeful, like that could also be maybe getting up to work on the assignment with another student. So that would also be good to see. And also, like Ms. Kisan said too, if they could also put comments like on the purposeful, oh, they were working with another student on this in this path, or they went up to talk to another student, or to go make a TikTok or something, like comments like that with the path that's purposeful or non-purposeful would also be helpful too.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, like I'm a physical education teacher, so for us, it's activity. We're always monitoring all the way around because we want to make sure that they're all on task, and those that are not on task, we can easily see them when they're spread out like that. It's a lot easier for us. And
it's a good example to set forth where you're constantly moving. So it sets that guide for your students to make sure they're on task or they're not messing around, even in the PE setting or even in the classroom setting. It's always a good idea to keep moving around when you can. So there's 2 left, and we'll go very briefly, and then we'll start compiling a form so that we can try to get something completed. So tally marks, it can be used to record many different types of information, although you do not actually record words or actions, totals. So the example that it gives you here is they're just going to create tally marks. So for example, they're working on questions specifically, so types of questions. So when it came to it, they just separated by gender. So basically, every time there was a factual question, because the kids are at the desk, the observer just puts a tally. Oh, the boys asked a factual question, then they ask an explanation question. Well, exactly how does this work? And then the teacher would go into that detail. Or there's opinion questions and then application questions. And this doesn't really get too detailed, but so it's on economics. It was the lesson in this lesson. So it could have been a simple question like, well, not a simple question, like, well, explain this law of supply and demand, and that'll pretty much get any economics professor going for a long time. But these are examples of questions that your students are giving, and that's why the teacher or the appraiser's marking them specifically. Do you think this would be beneficial to put in a lesson for you, or a review for you? Because this doesn't really identify any students per se, just the gender. So it's kind of hard to say who was on task off. I mean, it could have been one boy asking all the same question. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I feel like this one, it's not super specific. It's not, and the thing that we've talked about a lot when I go to like pre-AP trainings is that feedback is best when it's specific and immediate. So I feel that this isn't super specific, especially because, like you said, it could have been the same boy that was asking all these questions. But with this form, how would I know that?
So for this example, there's also, like in the next page, I'll show you. So this is a different example they use. So they put called on, hand raised, called on, no hand raised. Self-initiated, they had their hand raised, self-initiated, no hand raised. So do you get, like, this is just another example. The other one was question, this one was hand raised, called on or self-initiated. So like you said, it's kind of hard to depict. It won't really identify other than the gender. So to me, it's really not that beneficial, in my opinion. Any thoughts? I
think it's a little, I would see like the benefit of it, but I feel like there's really no point for being like the gender separated. I mean, for me, it's, especially since you don't know, like you said, it could be the same kid over and over. So like it doesn't need to be, I guess, like specified by gender, but I can see the benefit of it. Like, am I calling on the students to ask them, provoke, like asking them questions, even if they're not raising their hands, or how many kids are actually, if I see a lot of tally marks in hand raised, that's going to give me the feedback that, oh, a lot of the kids are engaging in the lesson and stuff like that. So I like that part of it. Okay. So what we're going to try to do, I picked the ones that I think at least the ones that you all gave feedback on, the ones that kind of stood out that you all liked. I know, Christian, you like the class traffic because you like to see where your movement was about. Me, preferably, I did like selective verbatim. I know Sarah and Vanessa really like the at-task sample. And Sarah also liked the verbal flow. And I think one of the benefits that I also put in there was the sampling, because that's the overview of the teacher. So I guess as we try to create a little bit of what you all would think. So when you get your observation, what are some things that you actually do prefer? Would you prefer it more student-based or more teacher-based? Let me share my screen again. Anybody?
I think I would prefer both, because I mean, it is your evaluation and how well you did. However, you need to know, like, as far as the students, did the student understand the objective? What was the expectation? Did they meet it? And at the same time, how did you help them as a teacher meet that goal? Whether I mean, of course, there's different types of teaching methods, but I think it would have to be a mixture of both, getting the kids actively involved. Even those students that struggle, you can give them like questions, but maybe more or less like yes and no answer questions, because nowadays everybody wants the special, I'm talking like more special ed kids, they want those kids more to be in a more inclusive classroom. So you're going to get students that aren't your typical advanced GT students. However, you don't have to ask them a question that's very difficult for them to understand. Maybe make it a yes and no question. So there, like I said, then you would get the feedback like, okay, you had the expectations for all the students. Did you meet that expectation, and what could you improve on as a teacher? Okay. So what I'm writing here is, because I do
like where the teacher is getting analyzed and seeing how much she is lecturing or just observing the class. So I think that is important to see. Okay, and then that we can mark the time and behavior where you can specifically you can write as the observer's going what time they were doing and what they were actually discussing. So, but I do want to add the at task. So I think what I'm going to create is where we are using you're utilizing the sampling. The at task is we can make that key code for what the kids are doing in their desks, you know, whether they're at task, stalling, schoolwork. But I would like to add a different, maybe a timestamp for every time that you are marking which students are going. And then lastly, since we are having the desk, I mean, you could mix that classroom traffic to see how they are moving and create that legend to go with it. And the selected verbatim can also go hand in hand with when you are presenting, observing, managing, helping, or consoling. So if you put that presenting part, then you can put the question that was presented during the class and see how much they were actually talking about it or whatnot. And that you can put on the timestamp. But I would like to incorporate the at task part where you can set that legend of the students learning or students that were off task. B would be stalling. C would be schoolwork. And we can do that. And then I can make a box chart so that way that can be added in. But what I don't want to make it a huge form where we need 2-3 pages to have to do it. So if we can make it on one form, so that way when you get it, you can say, look, I was on task, I was presenting. This is what I did with my lecture. Then I watched how students reacted. And during that time, you could see that's, you know, how your students were reacting. And you can even flow with where the traffic was, teacher movement. And we can do it where you can just put, I guess on the timestamps where they do part of presenting, where was the teacher here? You can just put a star or another star at that time. And they can identify where they were moving. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I know Christian had mentioned about it's good to see where your students are moving to, but I think if we did the at task part, you're kind of going to incorporate what that student's doing at that time. And you don't necessarily, but it is a good idea to get the feedback on how much you as a teacher are moving around the classroom and presenting and not just, you know, in one spot. So I do agree with the way you presented that. And so that's kind of the at task will be kind of blended with the class traffic, which is good. And then the selective verbatim part is when they are, like I said, we're going to kind of put those together where they put that time that they're presenting. You can put what specific question the teacher is going with in the classroom. But other than that, guys, I do appreciate hearing the feedback from the different forums for you. So that way we can go over what you liked as being appraised and what you liked from or what you didn't like from being appraised. Let me stop sharing and then I'll talk to y'all real briefly. I appreciate everything y'all have brought to the table. Thank you all for giving me some time to discuss the forms, and I really do appreciate everything y'all are doing. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.
All right. Hi, Ms. Hernandez. I just wanted to take this time that I was able to view you in your classroom and in your math class, and I was able to get in there and get a couple notes on your teaching style, and I just wanted to give you some feedback so that way can help you understand what I saw and what I think you can improve on. And if you have any concerns regarding your observation, you can easily get back to me and see if there's any way we can improve that, or maybe you want to discuss something of why you thought that was good, but maybe I wrote something that maybe you disagreed with. So I did, and upon walking into your room, I thought you did a very good job managing your class. Your class was pretty much on task. Most students were working. And at the time I walked in, you were helping some students. And I did enjoy watching how when one student was struggling, you went and asked, you gave her a question and asked, I guess basically a step, and asked her, well, do you have all the points? She said no. And then you said, well, you gave her the best option. Well, what about the distance from here to here? And I think that might have hit the light bulb with her because she went ahead and realized she missed a step and she got to work. I thought that individualized instruction with her, or helping and assisting, was pretty important. And it seemed like she got on track after you made that note with her. I thought that was very beneficial to her. So she was able to comprehend what you were trying to get across in the lesson. Later, about the 2 minute 22-minute mark, 22-second mark, you had a student up on the board pretty much explaining the answer and working very well, showing the table work that I thought was it's important of that problem. I think it was very beneficial for him to get on the board. Now, why did you pick that student?
I picked that student because usually they're always kind of quickly understanding what we're learning, and they even will like to be volunteered sometimes in class. So I know they're not going to be like shy or upset about going up to do the problem on the board. And not only that, not only do the students will see it from another perspective, like they're seeing a peer do the same work in front of them. That kind of motivates them to like, oh, if my peer, is doing this and they can understand it, I can also do it. And then they also feel like they might be more comfortable asking their peers or that peer specifically for help in assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really thought that was really good to get him on the board. And if he's not struggling, which is fine, and even if he was like he said, you said, he's probably one of your better students. It's still good to get him on there, and you get a better understanding of, okay, maybe for sure that they are comprehending everything you're teaching, and that's a good assessment in getting to pick that student. My recommendation is just always change it up, make sure we're not, I'm not saying you are, but make sure that you are changing it up with students that if you want to do that, so that way they can uh be called on, because there's sometimes you have students that are doing it right and know how to do it, but they don't want to be called on, or they're just, oh, Miss Hernandez hasn't called me, and I feel like I'm inadequate at one point or whatever. But I think that's the best thing to do is to get them learning from their peers and understanding the concept of the lesson. Another thing that you did really well was at the 4-minute mark, was that you were trying to reiterate the lesson with the students from the previous day, where you were talking about a square root property. What property did Alexa say she would use here? And it kind of got kind of gray area because there wasn't really anybody. And then you explained what you were looking for, which allows you to do the square root of both sides of an equation. And then you had 1 or 2 students answer the square root property. Only suggestion in that sense is obviously, you're trying to ask what you remember what you did yesterday. I guess be more specific in that, because you're going to get a broad bunch of answers in that sense when you say, well, what were we trying to do yesterday? And some are going to give you answers from another problem or another topic that you covered. So just kind of pinpoint it. Maybe don't give the answer away, but I think it'd be a bit of a challenge for them to understand what you're trying to come across with. And I think that helps and can be beneficial to them. So when you are creating that, just make sure that you make it to where they kind of use that critical thinking, so where you're not just trying to give them the answer, but at least focus on what they can do. Also at 4:50, students were working on their own. And if you look at the paperwork I have sent you, you can see that I was tracking your movements throughout the class. I thought you did an excellent job making sure. My recommendation is just to make sure, if you are going to be having them working on their own, make sure that you know which students may struggle with certain topics, or maybe need that extra help, maybe need that inclusion with the class, which is fine, which is why you have them in groups. Just make sure that you know where your students are. I mean, if you have any comment to that would be beneficial.
Yeah, especially like in group work, if I see that they're struggling a little more, I can go and give them one-on-one, but also maybe pairing them with their peers that are maybe understanding the concepts a little bit better, so that way they can work together and they get maybe a little more motivated working with the kids that are on task and up to understanding all the concepts so far, so that way they can learn from their peers. I'll try to like maybe mix the groups with the students that are achieving very well in the class, and then maybe with the ones that are a little bit struggling with some of the concepts. But then even then, I'll still try to go around and do one-on-one, helping them one-on-one with the concepts and the assignments.
Good. And then another thing, you did a very good job, because I like to really mention your classroom management. I thought you had a lot of the students on task. I didn't really see too many students stalling. Everybody seemed to be working on the same thing, which was good. I think that's important. And nobody was really moving around anywhere that they didn't need to be. I thought that's a great job by you, as far as you setting your classroom rules and doing everything that needs to be done in the classroom is important. And I think you did an excellent job with that. Other comments I'd like to mention is at the 6:23 mark, you did your assignments as geometry closer, and I gotta say that was very nice to see the kids actively using that and participating. That was an excellent opportunity for them to finish the lesson. As far as being in your math class, where did you come up with that or see that?
So that closer, I learned it at a professional development. But I really liked it because it gets the kids involved and it's not just sit down and do your assignment. It gets them involved. It gets them visually and physically kind of getting the concept more than just writing something down or calculating. So I like that, and it keeps them involved, till the end of the period, just keeps them on task and doing something different, but still working on the same concept and practicing the same concept that they've been doing on the assignment or in class.
Okay. So overall suggestions for the end of the lesson, and I'll go over your competencies just to make sure they're your domain, so that way make sure that we are coming up on it. Let me go click one more thing. There we go. Sorry. On your dimension one with your standards and alignment, I think everything was in perfect order. I think you did a good job keeping your students aligned and everybody on task, which is important. The lesson seemed to be well designed and seemed to be in line with the scope and sequence that we are taking apart with the curriculum that the district has put forward. I thought that was pretty much you're on task with that, and that's a very important part, but you're doing very well. And they seem to be appropriate for the learners that you have in the classroom. And if you do identify any students that do need help, you did an excellent job making sure. And of course, we'll be able to see that through assessment. And when we when we get to that point, whether how often do you check assessments with your students as far as when you are going through your lessons?
So I try to stay in line, like you said, by following the lesson plan kind of outline for the TEKS and stuff. But then I'll still also add my own, like bell ringers or closers, like you mentioned that you really like that one. I still will add my own little things in, and sometimes even my own labs and activities. But I still follow that by following the lesson plans that the district has put out. And then by assessments, I do tests like once a 6 weeks. Just kind of towards the end of the 6 weeks to see once we finish a unit. But in the before that, I still like to give quizzes every maybe 1 or 2 quizzes before that. So about 2 quizzes and 1 test. And so for the test, those are more those are my assessments, but through the kind of unofficial assessments or the quizzes, because I do
Informal assessments.
informal assessments, I do allow them to use their notes so that they're kind of still practicing what they're learning, but also I'm still assessing them at the same time. So I can see if they're falling behind. That allows me to assess them, but also maybe they might learn through that quiz because they have their notes. So that allows them to do the quiz, but maybe learn something that they didn't learn in the previous assignment because maybe they fell behind a little bit.
Gotcha. And it's important that what I could see, like we talked about knowing your students. I think you do a good job knowing your students. And you can ensure that as much as they're learning through through all the marks we have on them, whether it's socioeconomic, anything like that, you can know what is or any aspects that could be hurting in their development. But you have a good understanding of your students, and I think that's important to make sure that they are getting through, and that's still with through the dimension. And the activities that you did use, like I said, your closer was really good, and obviously you had them going through the lesson, which was really important. I thought that was a very important task that you had with them. Just like I said when we talked about question, work more on higher order thinking, so that way you can get them to really process what the lesson is. But I mean, they're getting the concept. I can tell you that that's really good. And just keep doing a good job of ensuring that they're all pursuing their further higher level learning. with the lesson that you're going. And again, that comes with your following your lesson plans and your curriculum, but you can always look to exceed that by trying to make them understand a little bit more. That's your, as you're achieving your expectations, whether it's through a quiz or through an assessment or just like I said, an informal assessment. Like a good example is if you're, like you said, you're doing geometry and you have them do those angles and making sure they're getting the concept of it. And look for any maybe minor projects that they can do on their own at home as an assessment or any grade, just so that way they get it back to them. As far as your instruction, I thought you did a really good job of getting the message and getting the lesson across to the kids. That's one time, especially for younger teachers or teachers that are coming into the profession. Sometimes we do get lost in that, like, why know it? They should know it, or that
Mhm.
concept. And I think you did a good job, especially with that student that was probably just needed that extra part of getting to realign to what her steps were. And as soon as you did realign her, she got really understood of what was going on. Um, and I think your lesson was executed very well, at least from what I got when I walked into the room, so that way I could see how they were going. It was a really good job in that sense. And your communication with your class is great because, anytime they had a question, they raised their hand or you went to them, you were able to effectively communicate and explain what was good from what they were doing, their steps, or if they were making a mistake. And you start knowing your students as you start going progressing through the year. And I think that's a good way because that way you can know, I know I have to be tougher on this student, or I know I have to take a little more time with this student, explain something, and maybe he'll get the understanding, which is good. I think you did a really good job with communicating with your students, and that's the best thing that anyone can do for your students is to create that relationship with them. Your
Yeah.
differentiation was great. Everything was aligned really well, and as you start identifying those other students, just make sure that you can identify and help them as best as they can. And let's see, as far as being able to adjust, that's part of you being understanding and seeing on the fly and understanding how much they are getting and maybe what they're not understanding. But you did a great job. As far as your learning environment in the classroom, I thought it was really great. You did take the time with your students. It seems very organized. You seem like you have a very good seating chart. You have students that are in position to learn and get the best benefit out of the way you have the classroom set up. Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure already now you see that when they're leaving, they know, oh, it's Simon Says Geometry game. They're ready to leave with it. I didn't see at the beginning, but do you have a opener when they come into the classroom?
Yes, I usually try to have a bell ringer based on like the stuff that they're learning in the previous like week or the previous day. I try to do bell ringers every day. If I can, some days we have to continue an assignment or something, but if we can, I do bell ringers and I try to do like prizes sometimes, not every day. Sometimes I'll do stickers because you would be surprised, but even high school kids still want stickers. So sometimes I'll do stickers. Sometimes I'll do candy, stuff like that for them to get motivated to get the answer first. And I try to do more than just one because if I do one kid, then they give up really quickly because they know, oh, that kid, that always gets the answer first will be the first one. So I try to do at least 5. So that way, and sometimes usually they'll change besides maybe the first 1 or 2 people, they'll change because some kids are getting the concept more than other on that unit. It just depends. So I try to do 5 and then the first kid will get it, second kid, and I'll let them know, we have 3 candies left and they keep working hard to try to get that answer. So I try to do that to get them ready for the class, but also reviewing the material that they're learning.
Mm-hmm. And so, lastly, the last thing before I let you go, your planning, your instruction, the learning environment, like I said, you've done a really good job, and your professional and practices, everything seems to work really well in that classroom. I do admire you. I do see good things, and like I said, the little things that I said maybe can correct and help you will be beneficial to you overall in the long run. But I gotta say, everything else seems to be in line with what you are doing in the classroom. But if you ever need any support or anything in the class, for the class, please do not hesitate to reach out to us in the administration office. because we are here to make you a better teacher and make you succeed. But if you have any other questions, just feel free to reach out to me through email or see me in the hall. That's not a problem. Alrighty.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the feedback, and I'll let you know and I'll work on those higher order thinking projects, stuff like that. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you.